Some horrors don't live in haunted houses or abandoned asylums. They live right next door. In 2019, a woman named Mara Jensen moved into a quiet apartment complex in Hamburg, Germany. The building wasn't old, barely 30 years, but something about apartment 313 had an unsettling silence. The previous tenant had disappeared without a trace. The management brushed it off as personal reasons. Mara didn't think much of it until the first note arrived. It was slipped under her door at night, written in a trembling hand. "I see you when you sleep. Please don't close the curtains." She assumed it was a prank. She laughed about it the next day to her co-worker, until another note appeared, this time taped to her bathroom mirror. "You looked beautiful in red yesterday." Mara didn't own any red clothes. From there, things escalated. The sound of faint breathing came from her vents. Her toothpaste would be squeezed in different ways every morning. She even noticed her photos on social media getting likes from an account with her own name and profile picture. But she hadn't made it. Every night, at exactly 3:13 a.m., her phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number that only read, "Don't look behind you." This story is based on real police records and security footage obtained from the building before the investigation was suddenly sealed. What happened to Mara inside apartment 313 remains one of Germany's most disturbing unexplained cases. Mara moved into apartment 313 on a rainy Tuesday. The hallway smelled faintly of dust and cleaning products. The landlord, a thin man with shaking hands, handed her the keys and muttered, "No loud noises after midnight." She thought it was an odd rule but nodded politely. Inside, the apartment looked perfectly normal. Small kitchen, clean walls, a single window facing the courtyard. She unpacked her boxes, played music softly, and told herself she'd finally found peace after her messy breakup. By 11:30 p.m., she was curled up on the couch, half asleep. Then she heard it. A faint tap, followed by another, and another. She froze, listening. The sound came from inside the walls, slow, deliberate, like knuckles brushing concrete. "Probably the pipes," she whispered. But when she leaned closer, she could hear something else underneath the rhythm, a muffled humming like someone quietly singing a lullaby. Mara turned off the TV, grabbed her phone, and pressed record. The humming stopped instantly. The silence was heavy, almost angry. She waited a few seconds, then laughed nervously. "Okay, I'm just tired," she told herself. At 3:13 a.m., her phone buzzed. "Unknown number, why did you stop listening?" Her heart pounded. She checked the locks twice, closed her curtains, and forced herself to sleep. But just as her eyes began to close, she heard a whisper, so soft she thought it came from inside her own head. "Good night, Mara." The next morning, her front door was wide open. The next evening, Mara came home early from work, determined to convince herself that everything had a logical explanation. She blamed exhaustion, isolation, maybe even her imagination. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. She brewed a cup of tea and turned on some soft music to fill the silence. Everything was fine for the first few hours, but at exactly 10:17 p.m. the music cut off mid-song. The lights flickered once, twice, and then stayed dim. Then came the knocking. 3 slow, heavy thuds against the living room wall, measured, deliberate. Mara froze, her mug trembling in her hand. She forced a laugh. "Old building," she whispered, though her voice cracked halfway through. She pressed her ear to the wall and heard breathing, slow, wet, human. Her instincts screamed to leave, but curiosity anchored her in place. She tapped back, 3 quick knocks. For a moment, there was silence. Then in reply, 3 identical knocks echoed back. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear the pulse in her ears. She backed away, trembling. The breathing behind the wall grew louder, closer, until it felt like someone was inches away, whispering through the plaster. Mara grabbed her phone and called the landlord. He didn't pick up. She left a shaky voicemail explaining what she heard. Seconds later, her phone vibrated. Message. "Unknown number. Stop knocking." The tea mug shattered as she dropped it. Mara ran to the door, grabbed her keys, and twisted the lock. But before she could open it, 3 soft knocks came from the inside of the door. The walls seemed to breathe. The lights flickered out completely. She wasn't alone anymore. Mara didn't sleep that night. Every sound in the apartment felt amplified. The groaning of pipes, the ticking of her clock, the wind pressing against the old windows. She sat in the corner of her bedroom clutching a kitchen knife, waiting for dawn. When light finally poured through the blinds, she dared to breathe again. She convinced herself it had to be a prank. Maybe someone had access to the empty unit next door. She needed proof. That morning, she called the landlord again, still no answer. Then she remembered something strange. There wasn't supposed to be a next-door apartment. Her flat shared a wall with the building's old laundry storage, sealed decades ago. That night, she set up her phone to record. She placed it facing the wall where the knocking came from and sat on the couch, trying to act natural. Hours passed with nothing, until just before midnight. The air turned cold enough that she could see her breath. The knocking returned, slow, rhythmic, but this time, it moved, starting from the wall, then crawling up toward the ceiling, and finally behind her mirror. The phone kept recording as Mara turned around. The mirror reflected her terrified face, and another shape behind her. It was tall, wrong, like a figure made from smoke. The outline of a head tilted unnaturally as though studying her. Then in a single motion, it moved closer in the reflection, but not in the room. The phone fell from her hand, the screen showing the distorted reflection twitching in and out of focus. When she looked again, the mirror was empty. But in the reflection of her phone's camera lens, the smoky shape still stood there, watching. When Mara finally gathered the courage to watch the recording, her hands trembled so violently that the phone nearly slipped. The video began innocently enough, just the quiet hum of the room, and the occasional flicker of passing headlights through the window. But around 11:57 p.m., the temperature in the footage seemed to drop. The colors dulled, and faint static began to whisper through the audio. Then came the knocking, soft at first, then insistent. The sound was so close it felt like it was coming from inside the walls. Her pulse quickened as she watched herself freeze in the frame, looking toward the mirror. And then there it was. The reflection shifted. The shape was no longer just smoke, it had form now. A hunched, faceless silhouette, taller than any person could be. Its limbs slightly too long, its head twitching in unnatural jerks. Mara pressed pause, gasping for breath. But when she glanced at the progress bar, she realized the video was still playing. The reflection on the screen turned its head slowly toward her. Panicked, she threw the phone onto the couch. The sound of static filled the room, growing louder and sharper, almost mechanical. Then, a soft voice whispered through the speakers. "You shouldn't have looked." The lights flickered violently, plunging the apartment into momentary darkness. When they came back on, the mirror was cracked. A thin, black liquid began seeping down from the break, dripping onto the floor. She backed away, shaking. Every instinct told her to run, but her legs wouldn't move. On the floor, her phone kept recording, its camera now aimed directly at her. And behind her reflection, the shadow was smiling. Mara didn't sleep that night. She sat in the corner of her living room, eyes locked on the mirror, waiting for dawn to break. The phone had stopped recording at exactly midnight, just as the reflection began to smile. She didn't dare replay it. Every time she tried to delete the file, the screen froze and whispered static filled the air. By morning, she decided to cover the mirror with a blanket. But as she stepped closer, she saw something carved into the glass beneath the crack. Words, shallow, jagged, as though scratched from the other side. "I see you." Her breath caught. She stumbled back, knocking over a lamp. The sound echoed through the empty apartment. Then, faintly, from behind the blanket came a sound she hadn't heard before. Not whispering, not static. Breathing. Terrified, she called the apartment manager and demanded to know who had lived there before her. The man hesitated, then sighed. "No one stayed in that unit for long," he said. "The last tenant was a woman named Claire. She left after her boyfriend went missing. She said something was in the mirror." Mara's blood ran cold. "What happened to him?" "They never found him," the manager replied. "Police said he just vanished. Claire swore she saw his reflection waving at her, weeks after he was gone." That night, Mara taped the mirror to the wall, sealing it completely. But around midnight, the tape began to peel on its own. A handprint pressed from the inside, smearing that same black liquid across the fabric. Then came a voice, low, strained, familiar. It was her own. "Let me out." Mara didn't leave her apartment that morning. Every sound felt amplified. The hum of the fridge, the ticking clock, the faint rustle of fabric where the mirror lay covered. She tried to distract herself with coffee and music, but every reflective surface, her phone screen, the kettle, even the window, seemed to shimmer with faint movement. She finally decided to get rid of it. She grabbed a hammer, ripped the blanket down, and smashed the mirror in a panic. The sound was deafening. Glass exploded across the floor, tiny shards glinting in the light like scattered diamonds. For a moment, she felt relief. It was over, but then she noticed something impossible. Her reflection in one of the broken shards was still whole, standing perfectly upright, staring at her. It blinked once, slowly, and then it smiled. Mara backed away, trembling. The shard began to tremble too, vibrating against the floor as if something inside was alive. From within the glass, her reflection's lips began to move silently. She couldn't hear it, but she could read the words. "You broke the wrong side." Suddenly, every shard began to vibrate, lifting slightly off the floor. A deep, low hum filled the apartment. The lights flickered. When the glow returned, she saw herself reflected hundreds of times over, all of them moving independently, all smiling. She ran for the door, but the handle was burning hot. She pulled her hand back with a scream. Smoke rose from her skin. When she looked down, one of the shards had rolled toward her, stopping by her foot. Inside it, her reflection was whispering now, words she couldn't hear, but could feel vibrating through her bones. Then, from behind her, the sound of a footstep echoed, slow, heavy, and when she turned, she saw herself standing there. Only this version wasn't smiling, it was grinning. Mara stumbled backward, her breath catching in her throat. The version of herself that stood across the room was no mere reflection. It was solid, breathing, alive. But its movements were wrong. Each step it took seemed slightly delayed, like a puppet mimicking the memory of motion. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The other Mara tilted her head with an unnatural slowness. "You invited me," it said softly, voice distorted as if layered with echoes. "You look too long. You broke the barrier." Mara's heart pounded. The creature moved closer, barefoot on the broken glass, leaving no footprints, no sound. "I don't understand," she cried, backing into the corner. Her double smiled, a grin too wide, stretching beyond what was human. "You saw me. That means you belong here now." Mara darted toward the window, throwing it open in desperation. Cold night air flooded the room, but outside wasn't her street. It was a dark void stretching endlessly, with countless mirror-like surfaces floating in the distance. In every one of them, she could see herself, hundreds of versions, each screaming silently. The doppelganger's hand shot out, grabbing her arm with terrifying strength. Its skin was ice cold, almost metallic. "You broke the mirror," it hissed. "Now I'm free." Mara screamed and twisted, slamming the creature's arm against the wall. But when she looked again, there was no mark. Its flesh rippled like liquid. The other Mara laughed, a hollow echoing sound that filled the apartment. "Go ahead," it whispered. "Run. But every reflection you see from now on will be me." Mara fled the apartment, not daring to look at a single surface. But as she ran down the street, she caught her reflection in a passing window, and the figure inside didn't run at all. It just stood there, smiling. Mara ran until her lungs burned, her shoes slapping against the wet pavement of an unfamiliar street. The city around her seemed wrong, quieter, dimmer, as though someone had drained it of life. Every window she passed reflected not the world behind her, but a darker version of it. Shadows moved independently in the glass, stretching, twisting, sometimes grinning. She ducked into a small cafe, the bell above the door chiming faintly. The air inside was heavy with dust, and the lights flickered weakly. No one seemed to be there, but the faint sound of a spoon stirring in a cup came from the back. "Hello?" she called out. No answer. She moved slowly, heart hammering. Then she saw it, a wall-length mirror behind the counter. In its reflection, the cafe was crowded. Dozens of people sat at tables, sipping coffee, talking. But when she turned around, the room was empty. Only the sound of murmuring continued, coming from the mirror itself. Her reflection sat among them, smiling faintly. It looked up at her and raised a cup as if to toast. "No," Mara whispered, backing away. But as she did, the people in the reflection began turning their heads one by one to look at her. Their faces were pale, their eyes hollow, and then they started to stand. The reflection of Mara pressed her hand against the glass and the surface rippled like water. "You're on the wrong side," her mirrored self whispered. "Come back." The cafe lights flickered violently. The humming grew louder, more distorted. She tried to run, but the door she'd entered was gone. Only another mirror stood in its place. Every reflection now showed her standing still, though she was screaming and clawing at the glass. It was as if her image had been separated from her body. And then she realized with horror, she was fading. Her skin was losing color, her hands becoming translucent. The reflection wasn't mimicking her anymore. It was taking her place. Mara's scream echoed, but the sound was muffled, as if she were underwater. The world around her shimmered, her vision rippling like heat rising from asphalt. She staggered forward, only to realize she was no longer standing on solid ground. Beneath her feet stretched an endless reflective surface, cracked and shifting. Above her, the same reflection extended endlessly into the void. She was inside the mirror. Her reflection stood a few feet away, watching with cold fascination. "You should have never looked so deeply," it said, voice echoing unnaturally. "Now you've crossed over." "I just want to go home," Mara whispered, trembling. "Please let me out." Her reflection smiled. "You are home." The mirrored world pulsed with faint light, showing flickers of her apartment, her childhood home, the cafe, every place she had ever looked at herself. They were all fragments in the glass, floating around her like memories trapped in crystal. Mara tried to run, her footsteps echoing endlessly, but each direction looked the same. Reflections stretched infinitely, some clear, some warped. In one shard, she saw her younger self crying. In another, her parents sleeping peacefully. In a third, something that looked like her but moved with animal-like jerks crawling along the surface. Then she saw it, a tall, dark figure walking toward her across the mirrored floor. Its movements were slow, deliberate, its face obscured by rippling distortions. As it neared, she realized with horror that its body was made entirely of reflections, shards shifting and rearranging constantly, forming an ever-changing nightmare. The figure stopped just before her and spoke in dozens of voices at once. "You broke the mirror," it said. "Now you belong to us." The mirrored ground cracked beneath her. The pieces began to sink into the void, dragging her reflection down one by one. Mara screamed as her double reached out a hand, smiling coldly. "Don't fight it," it whispered. "Soon you won't remember which side you were on." Mara's screams faded into the echoing hum of the mirror realm. The ground beneath her quaked as cracks spread outward, splitting the reflective surface like ice under pressure. Her reflection, the one that had replaced her, watched from above, its expression no longer mocking but strangely calm, almost pitying. "You see now," it said softly. "There's no escape once the mirror chooses you." Mara struggled to hold on to something, but there was nothing, only smooth, cold glass stretching into infinity. The mirrored shards floating around her showed flashes of her world, the street outside her apartment, the cafe, her old bedroom. But every reflection was slightly wrong. In some, her double was there instead, living her life, smiling to friends, waving from windows. "No," she cried. "That's not me." "Oh, it is," the reflection replied, stepping closer. "It's the version that accepted what you denied. The reflection lives on, while you fade away." Mara's body began to disintegrate piece by piece. Her fingers turned to dust like silver light, scattering into the void. The tall, shifting mirror figure appeared again, standing behind her reflection. It placed its hand on the reflection's shoulder, as though passing on some ancient duty. "You've crossed over," the voices whispered. "Now watch." The mirrored world tilted violently. Mara felt herself falling, sinking through layers of glass and light. Each one showed moments from her life, smiles, tears, laughter, until finally, she saw the last image, her apartment. The mirror she had shattered was now whole again, standing untouched, and in its surface stood her reflection, the one that had replaced her, perfectly human, perfectly calm. It looked around the apartment, smiled, and whispered, "Home." As the image faded, the mirror's surface went still. But if one looked closely enough far beneath the glass, they might see another face, Mara's real face, screaming silently from within. The mirror now waits for another gaze, another curious soul to stare too long, until the next reflection awakens.